welcome to all of you. Next Friday, we have a special program, our annual holiday program here at the Benson. We hope that all of you can make it. This holiday showcase will feature quite a number of different acts from our Portland area in music and in dance. The groups will include these: the Dickens of Portland, a costume caroling group; the Portland Lyric Orchestra and Singers performing excerpts from Amal and the Night Visitors; the Northwest Independent Productions Players, performing selections from Dylan Thomas's A Child's Christmas in Wales and Truman Capote's A Christmas Memory; the Portland Morris Dancers, who will entertain us with a set of seasonal folk dances in the English Morris dance tradition; and finally, the Novum Cantorum, a 16-voice choir performing seasonal choral music. The program will get started a little early next week to fit all of that in, and it will be devoted entirely to these performances. So plan on coming early if you want to take it all in, and if you want to make sure you get a seat. There'll be, the Benson is going to put on a special menu for us for the holiday occasion, so it should be a very festive time, and I hope you can all be here. Remember that all lunches, both for members and guests next Friday, will be at the one rate of $8.50. So your guests, our guests, get a little break next week. The 2 Fridays after that are the 2 Fridays right at Christmas and New Year's, so we will not be having any program following next Friday for 2 weeks. And we will resume after the New Year. Our first program of the New Year will be the annual economic forecast. That'll be on January 8th. All of you have received at least one mailing, maybe more now, from me and maybe others about our new membership, the new donor categories that we have instituted, and we've had good responses from a number of you so far. There's been some confusion, as there always is when any organization starts something new. These new donor categories are not intended and do not replace the basic membership category. Membership in the City Club is still available to anybody in our city or in our metropolitan area for $80 a year. It's available to all of you, to all of us. So we encourage and welcome membership at that level by everyone in our community. Some people, though, are able to give more, and some people feel strongly enough about our programs and the research work of the City Club that they would like to give more, and that's what these new donor categories are intended to acknowledge and to encourage. As I say, we've had a number of good responses already, and I hope that all of you will consider donating at one of the increased levels. Every member of the Board of Governors, I'm glad to say, has come in at least at the patron level, and some of them higher than that. And if you can do that, it will certainly help our club's financial base and the programs and the research work of the club in the years ahead. I don't know how many times you hear on television or see in the paper during the holiday season that this or that is the perfect holiday gift. I saw a case of Valvoline motor oil advertised as perfect Christmas gift the other day, and I thought that was going a little far. But what I want to suggest to you is that the truly perfect Christmas gift or holiday gift is a membership in the City Club of Portland. What could be nicer than to wake up on Christmas morning and find in your stocking a gift membership in the Portland City Club? So please remember that and give me a call or give Nina a call, and we will send out something embossed and suitable for your stocking on Christmas morning. Now, for today's program, something a little different. A little increased press attention today, perhaps, for our speakers, and we're glad to have them. We're glad to welcome guests who are here for this special occasion, too. I'm going to introduce our speakers separately, and so I will begin with our first speaker, and then you'll hear more about the others when their turn comes. Carole McMains is one of a growing number of professional astrological consultants. She has been practicing in this field in Portland for 8 years. She and her partner, Elizabeth Smith, operate Astrology Services of Portland on Barber Boulevard. Carole uses astrology as a diagnostic tool to help her clients learn about themselves and to reach their highest potential. And she is finding that psychologists and psychiatrists, too, are beginning to use astrology to speed up the healing process of their patients. The astrological birth chart gives information on personality traits, family background, and psychological patterns for the individual, but the birth time of a city or of a country can also reveal the nature of collective experience there. Carole teaches astrology. She provides a mail order astrology and numerology service, and she spends a lot of time in individual consultations with her clients, who range from students and blue-collar workers to PhDs and everyone else in between. We're looking forward to her remarks very much. Please welcome Carole McMains.
I bet you're all surprised that we all just look like normal, average people. We are. I'm really pleased to be here for a lot of reasons, but for one, to dispel some myths about the tool of astrology as it's being used today. It's getting to be, I think, respected for the diagnostic tool that it is. We can look around by the time we get to most of our ages and recognize that there are rhythms and patterns going on around us all the time. I recently watched a program on PBS about astronomy, and one of the quotes that I wrote down, I felt real good. They said that our lives are intimately connected with the life cycles of the stars, and that's true. You can think of that on lots and lots of levels. There is a tremendous amount of order in this universe. That's comforting to know. The tool of astrology is now being used in a way that we can understand that order a little bit more individually for ourselves, and then collectively for ourselves as a city, as a country, as a world. A lot of information there, and information is the first step to being really in charge of what's going on instead of just responding to it. Talking a little bit about, in general, the city of Portland, I think I'll start on a little bit on a light note in terms of looking at the leader of a city. You can tell an awful lot about what's going on in the rhythms and the cycles of that city at the time. And Bud Clark is an easy one to talk about because he's a classic case. Anybody who goes home and picks up a sun sign book just to look at his sun sign, that's just the date that he was born. After you read that, you're not going to throw away everything you've thought about credibility of astrology at that time. You be a believer. If you know very much about Sagittarians, he is a definitely classic case of a Sagittarius. Sagittarians tend to be very expansive people. Tell you a little bit about that. Blunt people sometimes have the foot in the mouth disease, as I call it. And I can talk about this because I have a heavy dose of Sagittarius myself. I can laugh at myself as well as laughing at the mayor sometimes. A flair for the dramatic. I think we could all agree that that's been the nature, you know, of Bud Clark's life, is that, and very definitely progressive, always emotion and a mover and a shaker, that kind of an individual generally as a Sagittarian. Now the city of Portland, when we look at the city and its birth, we look at the time of the first settlement here. That's what dates it. And as a result, this is a Scorpio city. November of 1843 was that time. Scorpio tells us a lot about the collective energy of people who are attracted here and how we behave and what become the central issues for all of us. And as a Scorpio city, it's pretty complex to begin with. I think we fit our patterns very, very well. We tend to really get seriously involved in the issues, and the type of people in Portland as a city tend to be loners, individualistic, prone to extremes. As a result, not just Portland, but in the state of Oregon, have led the way a lot of times, you know, in the bottle bill and legalizing marijuana, and you could go on, the kinds of things. We insist on the individual's rights, but there's still an underlying, not really a super support or a condemnation in either way. It's just the right to do what you want to do and be left alone doing it. So we aren't, just wildly out there pushing causes and going crazy about things, but we do support the individual's rights. Makes it an interesting city to live in, but it's complex. The rest of the chart, besides the sun sign, tells us that there is this battle that goes on in this city on an ongoing basis, back and forth, between the need to be secure and stable, controlled economically and so forth, and the need to be to take risks and to grow and to move on. We'd like to be a metropolis, but at the same time, we are real cautious about crazy growth and people coming in from the outside. If you knew the symbols of astrology and looked at the chart, you could see that all those things are inherent in that chart of Portland. Next year, coming up, the cycles, the rhythms just continue to move on, and the city and the state are affected by those as well as they connect in with that original birth time of the city. That's how the cycles are looked at. You can look at the rhythms based on the beginning and what's affecting them now. Because of that, the rhythms in 1988, I think we are going to see a whole lot of restlessness. It's already here. But primarily through I guess through looking at the fact that the people in general are restless and are really wanting change dramatically. And this city, as I've just said, is not comfortable with uncontrolled kinds of change. So I think that there will be a lot of situations through this the next year that are going to challenge us in many ways. You can't hold it down anymore, and this is probably going to feel like a troublesome year in a lot of ways, but by the same token, I think we'll be growing. We're finally going to be moving forward and growing, I think, in a real positive way. Radical, progressive kinds of actions and so forth. I think we'll see some of those happening this year. And at the same time, the structures trying to maintain and hold things the way they are comfortable for them. We can't do that. It's just not going to work real well. So it will tend to be, I think, a volatile year at the same time as one that's growth-oriented as well. I think those are the major issues I just wanted to go over in terms of the city. Oregon is an Aquarian state. Its birth was in February, so it's an Aquarian state, and as a result, we get that reputation of being individualistic again, and the leader in many ways throughout the nation with doing things a new way. So we've got this battle in Portland with that energy around us of being the forerunner and trying to maintain control. It's like living in a schizophrenic city is what it's like. But there's a lot of energy underneath that. It's exciting. I'm very proud to be living here. One other thing I found real interesting in looking at the chart, both of Portland and of the state of Oregon, is that Venus sits in the highest place in the chart, which says that a major theme for us will be maintaining the beauty of the state and of the city. And we can certainly look at that and see that all around. I read someplace recently that Portland has more evergreens in the city than any other state, in the Union. So we have definitely kept nature at its best in many instances. So I think that's all I had to say at this point. I'll wait for some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carole. Our next speaker, Kathleen Long, is from Vancouver, Washington. She has been a professional psychic for a number of years. Her services are in demand from a wide range of individuals. There is no stereotypical client who consults any of our panelists today who seeks a person in this line of work. Kathleen has made a number of television appearances and public lectures in connection with her work. She is available for house parties as well as for individual consultations. She has done some missing person work, but her areas of emphasis are financial investments, health, and relationships. Please welcome Kathleen Long.
Here's levitation. I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me today. I want to give you a little bit of my background first before I go into my predictions of Portland. I have done a lot of missing people work, and that isn't my favorite type of work because of the stress involved. It's very stressful to have the parents. I work mostly with parents. I haven't worked with the police. But it's very stressful when the parents are so desperate to find their children. But I have done it. I've done parental kidnapping. I've done some work on a serial murder case. Also, I've done a runaway, just all varieties of missing people. Okay, I'm going to go right into my predictions of Portland, if you're ready. I'm going to stick mostly with the financial of Portland because I feel a lot of change coming up. My first prediction is I feel one of the main banks on the East Coast, may it be Chase Manhattan, Citicorp, I'm not sure which one it is, will be moving in and buying out one of our major banks. Our top three are U.S., First Interstate, and Oregon Bank. I know it's not First Interstate, so where do you work? And it's going to take more than 1 year for it to happen, but I do feel it's in the process right now. Could take until '89 until it's finished. At that point, you'll see other banks in the Portland area panic a little bit. Your independents will start merging together. Now, with interest rates, I do feel there's going to be a drastic change around the later part of May. Right now, prime is 8.75. I feel we will see it at 7 again, around 7.7. Now, I'm sure you're all interested in the stock market, on what's going to happen there. Maybe some of you aren't interested. But I feel it is going to go haywire again. And if you do have money in the stock market, right now, don't do anything to it. I feel in February it's going to go haywire. Around May it's going to level out. That's the time to get out if you want out. But just hang on, it's not going to be as bad. Okay, with Max, I feel Max will be on the west side eventually. I doubt if it's going to be this year. Also, I see it going north and south. I would say more around 1990. You ready for the next president? Well, here I go. I feel that it could easily be Dole. I feel that Jackson will keep in there, but then he'll do something very, maybe embarrassing for himself, or something's going to catch up with him, and he will not win. But he will be one of the leading people. But I feel Dole will exceed. Well, those are all the predictions I have right now, and gee, thank you.
Our third panel member is Mark Walleck, a professional whose work is devoted entirely to exploring, teaching, and advancing the concepts and practice of intuition. For the past 9 years, Mark has successfully taught the art of using the intuition, which is an intensive training course requiring a firm 6-month commitment involving 8 to 10 group members at each individual session. Mark regularly holds training workshops all over the West Coast for audiences with specific needs involving groups ranging from psychotherapists to dentists to corporate employee management groups to chiropractors. He is well known in the Portland area for promoting the subject of intuition on television and radio, in magazine and newspaper interviews. Willamette Week and Reflections magazine both have called him Portland's best psychic. Please welcome Mark Wallek.
Yeah, I have the power too. When I first moved to Portland about 10 years ago from San Francisco area, there was something that really stood out to me, and that was the fact that this land and the city that's built upon this land here at the confluence of two rivers casts a very nurturing aura into the environment. This is a place where people can come and really receive the bounty and the vitality of this place. And I think it's pretty obvious in walking down the street in this city that this is an alive city, and that this is a city that has been for some years in a process of expansion. What city, other than this city, would have picked a patron deity who happens to be cast in the pose of dicing? When I found that out about Portlandia, it made perfect sense. There she is, kneeling, hand extended, open, not grasping, willing to let go, but also willing to receive. And as the archetypal patron of this city, we see that what she inspires us to do is to take the kinds of risks with our future that are rooted in a solid will to succeed and a will to maintain a harmony and a balance in our environment. Portland, and Oregon in general, has always been a leader in this respect. And to some extent, we have suffered the setbacks of not being able to grow as swiftly. That's fine. In order for Portland to maintain its unique quality of hominess, as well as being a metropolitan complex, we need to allow for that kind of slow and orderly growth, even as we need to encourage on an individual basis the kind of risk-taking that leads to, individual creativity and individual contribution to the networks or corporations or organizations that we participate in. So Portlandia says take the risk. And if we follow her lead and we apply a clear-willed intent, I think what we'll see is that this economic community has a tremendous influence on the political community in this city. More and more, I think, over the years, what we're going to see is the businessman, businesswoman coming out of the closet and laying claim to the fact that, yes, we are extremely influential in our political activities, and that in reality, it is the economic needs of this city, this state, this nation, and this world that is fueling an internationalist trend. Portland is in the perfect position to maximize the internationalist trend and to profit from it. We provide an opportunity for people, particularly here in the Pacific Rim, to come into an urban environment that can be handled, that can be felt, and whose limits can be held in consciousness and not be overwhelming. It's important for us to maintain this kind of welcoming posture because in the process of internationalization, Portland will, in these first maybe 5 years or so, have to take a lot and learn a lot. But what we're going to find, as Mr. Bogue pointed out to me, is that in the next generation, we're going to be able to return to the Pacific Rim and to the countries of the East with our ability to be direct and forthright. And in giving that gift to the East, we will begin to network in such a way as to allow a true opening in the East to the Western ideals and the Western intentions. As a Scorpio city, as Carole pointed out, it's very important for us not to try to keep secrets. What we see happening in the attempt to keep secrets is a kind of festering that ultimately leaves itself as an open wound. And the more recent kinds of things, particularly hitting the Willamette Week, kind of show us this. We tend to take our tragedies personally. This is something unique about this city. A couple years ago in the Mount Hood tragedy was a very moving experience for this entire city. And as a city, we evidence a quality of emotional sensitivity that we do not find in other areas of the country. This is something that is very precious, and it is important for us to preserve it. If what it means is we have to exercise a little patience, go a little slower, maybe not be the largest and most glittering diamond here on the West Coast, well, that's a small price to pay for a long-term longevity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Phil, do you have your own predictions to make, or I gather you were in dialogue with Mark about your predictions already. Our board host for today is our president-elect, Phil Bogue, and he has the first question or speech.
Charlie, first I just want to welcome the members of our January panel on economic forecasting. Glad you're all here. Really, my question will be in terms of a letter which we received. This program was not without controversy among our membership. I think the controversy is best described in a two-sentence letter which we received in the office dated December 9, and I would appreciate the comments from any of the members of the panel on the results of this letter. Dear Program Committee, I must object to the program this Friday. I disagree that, quote, psychics are routinely consulted by attorneys, police, end of quote, et al. Paragraph. I think the City Club should not give an aura of credibility to anti-science crackpots. Very truly yours. Your comments.
I think the microphones are on, ladies and gentlemen, and
I
just
there was a question.
yes, we'd like your comments on that, objection.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit extreme to say that we're anti-science crackpots. I think that it's very obvious that the Western empirical sciences really complement the Eastern esoteric sciences, and that there's really no conflict at all. One really has to understand one's own area of expertise and not try to be one in an area where one isn't.
I think also there is such a shift going on these days. People are becoming much more aware of right brain, left brain, those kinds of things, and the information that we're working with from their point of view. I think psychic point of view is more right brain oriented and so forth. With astrology, it's a combination of the two, because there is a structure that we're using to work through and so forth. But what we found in this world today is that the old logic, left brain, figure it out, what you see is what you get, is not enough. We have pushed this planet to the edge of destruction with technology without using the right brain compassion and working with the understanding of the things that we just don't, we can't see. So all that anger that comes out usually is because people's buttons are getting pushed. They're frustrated right now and so forth. And everybody has a right to feel the way they want to feel. And that's fine. So
I agree with both of them.
that's okay.
We have a lot of written questions here. I don't know why everyone is so eager for anonymity today. Please step up to the microphone, and Bill Lesh, our troubadour, is doing that, and he'll have his palm read here momentarily.
Well, I'd like to get into some real serious stuff here now and get to some real live predictions. I just have to know before I call my bookie, is Portland State going to win the Division II playoff game?
That's a good question.
It's a serious question.
I bet.
Who is it? Was it? Oh, me. Oh.
Kathleen, if you know that Dole is going to be president, I guess you know who's going to win the Portland State game.
How much money are you putting on? I want to say no. Sorry.
It isn't too clear yet.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, a question for Carole. Why do you pick the date of statehood to place a state's sign as opposed to the date of first settlement?
Okay.
Why not the date of chartering for a city?
Well, I didn't choose those. I did some research. This part of astrology, mundane astrology, is not my specialty in the first place, so I went to the best sources, and as I was reading where this fellow, Mark Penfield, did his research, he did it in various ways. That's a very good question. It depends, really the inception of an idea or an event or a place is what you would use, and more times than not, some legal thing like a charter is the thing that you would use. But in this case, he used for Portland the first settlement time, and I went with that, and I feel like it really depicted the energy of the city. If anybody has questions about this afterwards, feel free to call me or ask me some things about where I got the information.
Thank you.
I can understand that you don't know who's going to win the football game, and I won't be upset by that. But I suspect that you do know who's going to be the next mayor of Portland, and I'd love to have that answer.
I know who it won't be.
Well, who won't it be?
It won't be Bud Clark.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. It will not be, Bud Clark will not be reelected mayor.
I have to say that even though I tend to agree with that, it wouldn't be my own personal choice. I don't think that we have a candidate who has yet emerged who is really well tailored to this city. I think if one does not emerge, that we really need to get behind Bud Clark, and maybe the business community take a little stronger hand in involving itself in educating the city as to how to respond to the economic needs.
There was a written question along those same lines, but it had a second part. Can any of you tell us whether the election will be determined in May or whether there'll be a runoff in November? That may be getting a little too precise. Anybody have their tea leaves on that? No. All right.
No runoff.
No runoff. No runoff. All right.
I'll take a chance on that.
I'll back you.
Arnold Kogan, member of the club. A few years ago, biorhythms were all the rage, and I haven't heard you mention that particular field. How does biorhythms fit in with any of your predictions? And is it? I heard it. I think it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago that biorhythms were actually used by a number of major organizations. United Airlines, I think, it had stated publicly that it had used biorhythms. How does that fit in with some of the kinds of phenomenon you're talking about?
Well, it probably fits in better with astrology than it does with what they're talking about, because I was talking about rhythms and so forth too, and that's what biorhythms are about, the highs and lows and the peak times and the low times and so forth. And it's just that is a way of measuring that. Astrology is another way of measuring that, and biorhythms stayed, I think, a lot more general than astrology tends to do, because we can look at every part of the psyche in your chart. I just stayed very simple in looking at just sun sign things and generalities today, but you can dissect an individual's birth path, not predicting everything they're going to do in their life, but predicting the patterns and predicting the makeup and predicting the stresses at certain times that they will be under. Biorhythms does a similar kind of thing, but they're talking about energy pretty much, the physical, emotional, mental energies, I think.
Hi, Bill Long, City Club member. I presume from your presentations today that you want to be taken seriously.
Yes,
That's a
absolutely.
presumption, because we're having a lot of fun with you. And I want to ask you a question that's a serious question that gets at what is my uncertainty with respect to taking you seriously today. The way that our society works in general is it's a credentialist society. That is, one gets to where one is by virtue of credentials and experience and going through processes and then being chosen for a particular position and then promotions and so on down the line. Credentialism isn't everything, but credentialism is significant, the way our society defines itself. Now, my question then is two parts. Are credentials worth anything in the way you define yourselves? That is are there institutes through which you have gone and studied and gotten degrees in your particular fields? Is that an important aspect for you, or is there just some kind of divine effluence or something that flows through? That's a significant and a serious question for me. What's the role of credentialism in what you do, and do you connect with others in that process? Thank you.
Well, I feel what I do, I have no credentials, no paper, no institute that I've gone through, but I know my feedback from my clients. I know what I'm doing, and I know that the things are happening. I forgot the second part of your question.
Let me follow up on that, Kathleen, just for a moment, because there are a couple, and then I'll let the other two respond to that too, because there are a couple of questions along the same line. I think maybe part of what Bill is or another way of approaching what Bill was asking is our results. You mentioned missing persons, Kathleen.
Right.
Can you be a little more specific? Have you found a missing person? Have you consulted with police agencies or families? What's your ratio of success?
Well, I've had the different types. I had the runaway, yes, she came back. She was where I said she was. She went out of state she went through 2 states before they found her. One accident case where this boy and 2 friends were out crabbing. They vanished. Nobody saw them even enter the water. There was even a question if they even went crabbing. They were heavily involved in drugs. They thought maybe they just skipped out and left. The authorities, this happened in January of '84, the authorities checked the water the next day during the time that it happened to see which way the tides were going. This accident occurred out in Warrington, Oregon, and the tide showed they should have went out through the sea up towards Seattle. The mother contacted me a month later, and so I went to the mother's house, looked at a map, and said, well, gee, he's right here. And she said, well, it can't be because we checked the water. The area that I saw him in was, gosh, within a half a mile of where they launched the boat. We went out the next day with a search crew, and when the tides were down, we found the boat, we found the crab bags, we found life preserver with his name on it. We proved there was an accident. I really feel since a month had passed, being in the water, his body was gone. And personally, I wouldn't want to find a body that had been in the water for a month. So the parents had a funeral then, and I'm trying to think. The murder case that I'm working on, like I said, it's a serial murder case and it's unsolved. So I have no results on that. But I am not a medium, and you're asking earlier how do I do what I do, basically. What I do is I get feelings from people. I'm not a medium. Nobody talks through me. I've been doing it, like age 12 is when I recognized what I was doing. And sometimes I see things, a lot of times I feel things. Things of the past, things of the future.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to respond?
Yeah, in the issue of credentialism, there is no available credential for the professional psychic. Transpersonal psychology is a field that's really just emerged in the last 10 years or so, and right now JFK University down in the Bay Area is really struggling to get that kind of accreditation that can allow them to give degrees in transpersonal psychology. It's an infant branch of psychology. Really, in asking questions about the value of a particular practitioner's service, you really want to listen for how intelligently they can grasp and communicate the subject matter that they're dealing with. Because here, as a professional psychic, we're dealing by and large with a world of inner meaning and a capacity for subjective comprehension that is then available to kind of an analytical picking apart. And ultimately, what we're working with is a capacity to feel, to hear, to see, and to know that is responsive to the quality or the content of the environment around us. And what you find is if you are being recognized, you know it. People always know when they're recognized. They also always know when they're imposed upon with another person's idea of who they are. And in the process of choosing a psychic, say, you want to ask that kind of question, because you won't find anybody in my profession with a traditional background. It'll be very eclectic, and it will be very, much concerned with accessing a world of inner meaning to give life and vitality to a world of outer form. And that's what we largely work with, the inner subjective and the outer objective world, the interface there. How does the one qualify the other, and how does the objective world impact this inner world of meaning? How can we manage that? How can we make choices in that relationship to produce maximal value for ourselves and the people in our lives? Did that answer your question?
Okay. In reference to astrology, it's a little different kind of a situation. There is one college now that is giving a degree in astrology. It's just kind of a budding thing that's happening now. The way I had to get started, or the way I was lucky enough to get started, was to go into an apprenticeship program with another astrologer who was established and had a very strong psychological background. That's really the way I'm using the tool of astrology, is as an adjunct to psychology. I have had more people than I can count sitting in my chair who have said that in the 2 hours we've spent together, we got down to more than that they'd gotten down to in 2 or 3 years of psychotherapy. So and that's not saying that we should replace psychotherapy, because I've already stated astrology is a diagnostic tool. What I'm getting at is if you get the diagnosis, then you can go on to the healing processes, and that's what the psychologists and psychiatrists are equipped to do. But in relation to the training, it has to be, at this point, that's what I've been doing, is going on from here and training other people in the same way that I've been trained to use astrology as a psychological diagnostic tool. And I wish there were more credentials that would move a lot faster in getting accepted as a viable tool to help you better your life. That's all it's for. So, that's it.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, I know one of you does relationship counseling, and I was curious as to what the process is or what it involves. For instance, if you can tell someone your husband's having an affair, or no, don't marry that man. I'm just curious as to how you work with someone in answering those kind of questions, or if indeed you even do.
Okay, well, there are a number of different ways that can play out. A couple can come in together. That's very different than one or the other of the partners coming in by themselves. When people come in together, it's very obvious that there is a pair of individuals who create a third thing that is greater than either one of them independently, something that oftentimes is not even under their control. It's pretty easy for people, I think, to feel whether or not their partner is, say, for example, being true to them. Because once you establish a sexual bond, you also establish a sympathetic bond. And that's often what causes the greatest degree of difficulty in relationships, that sense of, who am I in this circumstance? That's really the most common relationship problem I see coming around, is a loss of individual identity. It's sacrificed to the obligations of the relationship. When an individual comes in with relationship-oriented questions, and say it's a married individual, sometimes they're asking questions about their partner who wants no part of what's going on here. In which case, when you start asking questions about the partner, there's a closed door. It's, when you ask and you wait patiently for an answer, not invested in what the answer is going to be, it'll always come.
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, if you want to speak at length about that, I'd be happy to do so afterwards. Go ahead.
Mine, when I see clients, I will not see them as couples, just for that reason. Because I have seen people cheating on one another, and I would not say, if I had a man and wife, I wouldn't say anything, because that would, could be dangerous on my part.
Yeah, it hit.
But a lot of times I do feel divorce, separation, cheating. Sometimes I won't say anything. If I know that person cannot handle it, I'm not going to say anything.
I do a lot of work with couples as well, and have actually had several come in who were in the process of divorce. And I thought that was really astute of them to want to leave themselves as whole as possible in leaving that relationship, because again, with the tool of astrology, it provides a way of really understanding and standing back and seeing the whole picture instead of just how you're seeing with a set of blinders on and so forth. So yeah, I do a lot of work with couples coming in together, or one of the couples, and I'm not interested in having one of the couples coming in to figure out how to get the best of the other one, that kind of thing. If they're coming in with intent to understand what's going on from their own perspective, because that, after all, is all they have any control over anyway, then we'll go from that perspective, but I weed out the rest. They can go someplace else.
I'm Susan Ferris. I'm a member of the City Club. Thank you to all of you for being here today. I agree that our Western society does force us into a real emphasis on reason, and that we, as Mark referred to it, frequently ignore the Eastern esoteric approach. And I think personally that's a great sadness for us as a society, because I think what you professionals offer us is testimony to the fact that feelings are truth, and that there is a lot of power in truth. So when we as a society don't acknowledge some of the truth in our being, I think there's tremendous sadness in that. My question, and I also know that every profession has good and bad, so some of you may be good, some of you may be bad. What my question is, as we are embracing more Eastern philosophies, a more feeling approach to our existence, has this affected you as professionals? Are people coming to you now more willingly rather than as, say, a last resort, out of desperation? And the second part of my question is, do you believe that people, reared in this Western society, when they open their mind, that they can become, for instance, as acceptant and perhaps as clear-sighted as some of you?
The second part of your question there, it's really my feeling that these are skills, and that there can be a conscious choice made to begin to pay attention. There are also consequences to that, because if I haven't been paying attention, I might be surprised at what it is I haven't been paying attention to. And I have to be willing to kind of take my lickings as well as have my successes.
Thank you.
I forgot the first part of your question, though.
Are people coming, are individuals coming to you more willingly, or are you, as is my perception of, like, say, maybe 20 years ago, people would come to the crystal ball soothsayer out of desperation rather than out of an acceptant posture?
Well, in general, I have found that men tend to be more crisis-oriented than women. And they change in crisis, and they don't necessarily, and this isn't, of course, true for every male, but there's a general tendency for women to be more elective in that respect. But there is a slowly increasing acceptance of the fact that, yes, we do have feelings as human beings, and yes, we have extended the capacities of our mind beyond our ability to maturely embody that as emotional creatures. And so we're playing catch-up right now, and it's exciting.
Thank you.
Hari Nam calls City Club. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Of just a brief comment about the last questioner, I think that this is the trend of the future. I just speak about my own life within about 10 seconds, is that I think it is very possible to be successful, very materially oriented in this society, and still understand that there's another side of you and put it all together. And I think it's a question of balance. If it's not good to be too spacey and crystal ball-y, it's not too good to be totally tied into the Maya, the whole thing. My question has something to do with the Reagan-Gorbachev situation. And of course, in your professions, you are largely dealing with the ebbs and flows and cycles of the individual. But obviously in astrology, there's the ebbs and flows and cycles of the universe, of the planet, of the society, which is what greatly interests me, because that really transcends what's happening on an individual basis. In Oriental astrology, there's this concept of the different yugas, and so we're in the Kali Yuga in Oriental astrology is the Dark Age, and what they've been saying for many, many eons has been that we're at the very end of an age now of great material prosperity, great intellectual prosperity, which are all fine and good. But while this has happened, there's been an increasing breakdown in human consciousness and values. And what I feel and see is that it's happening at a faster and faster and faster and faster rate. And there's going to be an implosion. It just looking at what's going on, the results are pretty obvious, at least to myself, and that's what I sense. And even though the United States is not at war now, I think it's fair to say that the world is at war, and there is much hostility and hatred everywhere around the planet. Where do you see this taking us? Do you feel the same way that I do? Where do you see it taking us, and how does that affect on the individual, both your client and people who you don't know?
Well, I'll talk astrologically about this. This is one of my favorite subjects, I guess. It's a poor choice of words, I guess, but we are living in a time for this planet that it's very, very obvious that in the next until about 1994, we are going to either learn to live together or die together on this planet. And what we see when we stand back and look are some really hopeful things, and yet a real polarization that is happening. We have a real dynamic, strong us-them kind of thing going on right now, very sharp. But by the same token, something that has never happened in our lifetime anyway, what I'm talking about is a part of the cycle of Pluto being in the sign of Scorpio in a very short, condensed kind of cycle for itself. That is raising up from very deep within the psyche our greatest fears and our connection with each other. And we can see that people have now shifted, the good side, the high side, is that people have shifted into a sense of oneness or knowingness of their being one that's not happened in our lifetime anyway. We can see that with the fact that when people are in trouble or something's going on, the African tragedy that started all this, Farm Aid, we go on and on and on. People join hands and they see that together they can accomplish great things. So we see on the one hand a great amount of compassion that's been raised out of the human soul and brought out into the light of day. And so as a result, I think there's a lot of hope for this planet. But time will tell which one wins, which side, our fear side or our love side. And that's really what the battle is all about for the next few years.
You others are not going to comment on that, okay?
Oh, I can make a comment. I was just thinking. Couldn't you hear it?
Yeah, sending it.
We have about 3 more minutes, Martin.
Okay. I'd just like to say, in response to that question, that I think that America, having been a proud and young nation, is now becoming a more humbled and mature nation. We're taking some losses along the way, but I think ultimately, as the younger generations take over the power, we're going to find that we are doing more than paying lip service to being a brother to other nations, that we are actually acting in the ways that demonstrate that brotherhood.
We have time for one last question.
Yes,
Quickly.
McMurdo, City Club member. My question is, we hear the word profession used to describe your work, and I just wonder on what basis you qualify to use this term.
I got it, nobody else took it.
I guess from what I heard before, results are what count to me in this day and age, because there's not much else we can go on at this point in time. I know that I want to put out to the people out there that I take this seriously as a profession. It is my work. It is the result of a lot of long years of study for me. And the results are what I hear back from my clients. They treat me like a professional. I behave like one.
Well, Mark and Kathleen and Carole, I want to thank you very much for coming, for putting up with us, for giving us some very thought-provoking and educational material to think about today. We do appreciate your being here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.